I'll give you $100,000 if you fix this. They laughed at her for being an immigrant. Then it roared. Hey, immigration control. What the hell is that Mexican doing in my workshop? Mike Harrison's voice echoed through Elite Motors like a gunshot, making all the mechanics stop working and look in the direction of the entrance door. Elena Rodriguez had just walked through the glass door of the luxury car dealership, her hands still smeared with oil after an all-nighter trying to save the engine of a delivery truck that fed an entire family. His English carried the accent that 16 years in the United States couldn't completely erase, but his mechanical competence spoke a universal language that most of the men inside could never understand. "Excuse me, I came to pick up a part one ordered yesterday," Elena said calmly, keeping her voice steady even though she felt all eyes on her. "Fuel pump for Mercedes-AMG GT." The blonde receptionist, with her perfect nails and immaculate blazer, stood up as if Elena represented a biological threat. "Honey, you must be lost. This is a premium dealership, not a neighborhood garage where you usually work." Mike Harrison, owner of Elite Motors and descendant of a traditional American family, wore a suit that cost more than the annual salary of many immigrants. By the age of 50, he had built his automotive empire on two things: expensive cars and an exclusive clientele that understood traditional American values. "What kind of scam are you trying to pull here?" Mike roared, approaching Elena as if she were a criminal. "People like you can't afford even a screw of these cars." Elena took a deep breath. At 34, she had faced this same humiliation hundreds of times since arriving in the country as an 18-year-old with nothing but a technical degree in mechanics and the dream of a better life. She had learned that reacting angrily only confirmed the prejudices they already carried. "Sir, I'm a certified mechanic. I've been working on engines longer than some of your employees here," he replied, pulling out a wallet containing his work documents and certifications. The laughter that erupted in the workshop was as cruel as it was deafening. Mike held onto the workbench, laughing as if he'd heard the joke of the century. "Mechanics? You?" he managed to say between laughs. "Let me guess, you learned to change oil in some backyard workshop in Mexico, didn't you?" The three mechanics who had left the workshop approached, curious at the confusion. Elena noticed that one of them, a young black man called David, wasn't laughing like the others. His eyes showed something different, the recognition of someone who had been through the same humiliation. Elena put the documents back in her pocket. For years she had tried to prove her worth by showing papers, certificates and diplomas, but it always ended the same way. People who doubted her ability simply because she was a Latin immigrant. "You know what," Mike said, a mischievous idea shining in his eyes. "I have a proposition for you, señorita. My Lamborghini Huracan has been stranded for 3 weeks. 4 specialized mechanics have already tried to fix it. They've all given up." Elena knew exactly the kind of problem he was describing. Lamborghini had complex systems that required specific knowledge of the brand, but she kept her expression neutral, waiting for him to continue. "If you can fix my car," Mike continued, crossing his arms, "I'll pay $100,000 in your hand, right here, right now." A heavy silence filled the reception area. $100,000 was an absurd amount for any auto repair. It was the price of a house. But Mike continued, smiling evilly. "If you don't make it, not only will you get nothing, but you'll have to apologize to everyone here for wasting our time with this Mexican mechanic farce. And never set foot in this workshop again." The mechanics started whispering amongst themselves. $100,000? "The boss has gone mad," one muttered. "She won't even know where to start," another added. Elena looked around the workshop, seeing top-notch equipment being wasted through prejudice and ignorance. Then something changed in her gaze, a determination that made some of those present realize that perhaps they had seriously underestimated this woman. "I accept," Elena said, stepping forward. There, in the face of all the scornful looks, she stood firm, like someone keeping a secret too powerful to reveal before the right time. If this story of prejudice and overcoming it has touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple moment of humiliation became the catalyst for a revolution that no one will ever forget. The workshop erupted in spiteful comments as Mike led Elena to the VIP area where his black Lamborghini Huracan was parked like an untouchable work of art. "This is going to be funny," whispered Jake, the chief mechanic, to his colleagues. "She must hardly know the difference between gasoline and diesel." "I bet she'll be asking for help in 5 minutes," laughed another. Mike stopped in front of the Italian supercar, crossing his arms in cruel satisfaction. There's your little challenge, señorita. V10 engine, 630 horsepower, injection system more complex than a NASA computer. Elena approached the Lamborghini with the same respect she would enter a cathedral. Her eyes traced every line of the car, every detail of the bodywork, as if she were reading a story written in metal and carbon fiber. What were the symptoms? He asked calmly, ignoring the laughter in the background. Total loss of power, acceleration failures, absurd fuel consumption, Mike replied dismissively. 4 Lamborghini-certified mechanics have given up. But I'm sure you, with your vast experience in junkyards, will sort it all out, right? The workshop's other customers began to gather to watch the show. Men in expensive suits, Swiss watches, Ferrari and Porsche keys in their hands. It was like an elite court trying an intruder. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, and her mind went back 16 years in time. She was only 18 when she crossed the border with nothing but a technical diploma and the phone number of a cousin who promised to help her get a job. The first workshop she tried was in Los Angeles. The owner, a second-generation American who spoke Spanish better than she spoke English, laughed in her face. "Mija, you're too pretty to be dirtying yourself with oil. How about working as a cleaner? I pay better and it's more suitable." The second attempt was worse. The owner didn't even let her finish explaining her qualifications. "Listen, lady, I don't hire illegals here. Go back to your country and leave the American jobs to the Americans." Elena had spent her first 5 years in the United States working 3 jobs: cleaning offices at dawn, waitressing in a Mexican restaurant during the day, and studying technical English at night. All to get a chance to work with what she really loved. "Can you open the hood?" Elena asked, coming back to the present. Mike made a theatrical gesture to Jake, who activated the hydraulics. The hood lifted, revealing the V10 engine like a piece of Italian jewelry, but Elena immediately realized that something was terribly wrong. "Did you change the injection module?" she asked, running her fingers over specific components. "Of course," Jake replied with irritation. "First thing any competent mechanic does." "And the oxygen sensor?" "Changed that too. Along with the fuel pump, filters, everything." Elena continued her inspection, asking technical questions that demonstrated an in-depth knowledge of Lamborghini. For each question, Jake had a defensive response, but she noticed something in his answers, a subtle hesitation, as if he were hiding something. "Can I start the engine?" he asked. "Of course, but I can tell you it's going to be the same as it was for the other 4 experts," Mike said, clearly amused by the situation. Elena got into the car, and for a moment she felt transported back to the first time she had sat in a real machine. She was 15 years old, and her father, a talented mechanic who never had any opportunities due to the extreme poverty in Mexico, had gotten temporary work in a workshop that serviced imported cars. "Mija," he had whispered that day, "one day you're going to work on machines like this. You have something I never had, education. Use it." 6 months later, her father died in an accident at work. Elena swore that day that she would honor his memory by proving that talent has no nationality. Now she turned the Lamborghini's key and the V10 engine roared, but the sound was completely wrong. There were irregularities in the rotation, vibrations that shouldn't be there, a combustion pattern that screamed specific problems that any experienced mechanic should have identified. She switched off the engine and got out of the car. Everyone looked at her expectantly, waiting for her to confess defeat. "I found the problem," Elena said calmly. The wave of laughter was deafening. "You found the problem?" Mike almost choked with laughter. "In 2 minutes? 4 experts spent weeks here." "The problem isn't where you looked," Elena said, getting back under the hood. David, the young black mechanic who had remained quiet, approached discreetly. Unlike the others, he watched Elena with genuine interest, not contempt. "Where is it then?" Jake asked, clearly irritated that she was prolonging what should have been a quick humiliation. Elena pointed to a small, almost imperceptible part in the system. "This sensor is intermittently faulty. It's not something that shows up in conventional tests." "That doesn't make sense," Jake protested. "That sensor has nothing to do with the symptoms." "Yes, it does," Elena explained patiently, using technical terms that made some mechanics uncomfortable. "When it fails intermittently, the module receives the wrong information about combustion, incorrectly adjusting the air-fuel mixture." Mike looked at Jake, who looked like he'd just been punched in the stomach. Is she right about that?" Mike asked. Jake stammered, clearly not knowing how to answer. That was when Elena smiled for the first time since entering the workshop, but it wasn't a smile of victory. It was the smile of someone who had just confirmed a suspicion far greater and far more dangerous than a simple mechanical problem. What those privileged men didn't know was that every act of contempt was writing its own sentence of defeat, and Elena had just discovered that the Lamborghini problem was just the tip of an iceberg that would make all that arrogance crumble like a house of cards. While Mike and the other mechanics continued to laugh at the Mexican woman who thought she knew about cars, Elena quietly asked to examine other parts of the engine. What she discovered in the next few minutes would completely change the course of the story. "Can I see the parts you changed?" she asked quietly. Jake hesitated for a moment, a hesitation that didn't go unnoticed by Elena. "Of course, they're all there on the workbench." Elena turned to the used parts, and something immediately caught her eye. She picked up one of the pieces and examined it carefully under the light. "This part has an original Lamborghini serial number," she said loudly, so that everyone could hear. "Of course it does," Jake replied quickly. "We only use original parts here." "That would be true," Elena continued, picking up a magnifying glass from the workbench, "if it weren't for one small detail." She passed the magnifying glass to Mike. "Look here. The serial number has been engraved over another number." Mike examined the piece, and his expression began to change. "Blimey, you can see another number underneath." David, the young mechanic who had remained quiet, approached. "That means—" he began, but stopped when he saw the murderous look Jake gave him. "It means that someone has taken a part from another car, erased the original number and engraved a new one," Elena explained. "It's a common technique on the auto parts black market." The silence in the workshop was deafening. Elena continued her inspection, finding more disturbing evidence. This welding here was done with improper equipment. And look at these tool marks, they were made with ordinary instruments, not Lamborghini-specific tools. Mike was getting visibly nervous. "Jake, what the hell is going on here?" I don't know anything about that," Jake stammered. "It must have been when the car went to that emergency workshop." Elena stopped examining the parts and looked directly at Jake. "What emergency workshop?" "About 3 months ago," Jake explained quickly, "Mr. Mike had car trouble on a trip. He had to leave it at a garage in Nevada to solve an urgent problem." "And that garage fixed it the same day?" Elena asked, already suspecting the answer. "It was ready in a few hours," Mike confirmed. "They said it was just a simple problem with the fuel system." Elena and David exchanged a meaningful look. It was exactly the typical scenario of a garage that does quick and dirty work. At that moment, Elena realized that David was trying to discreetly get her attention. He pointed to Jake, who was whispering something into his cell phone, clearly agitated. "I need to make a quick call," Elena said. "Can I use a workshop phone?" "You can use the one at reception," Mike replied, still engrossed in examining the suspicious pieces. Elena made her way to reception, followed discreetly by David. "Hey," David whispered when they were away from the others. "I need to tell you something. Jake has strange connections with workshops outside the city. He always knew exactly when certain expensive cars were going to travel." Elena looked at the young man with renewed interest. "How do you know that?" "Because I'm the only one here they don't respect enough to hide things in front of me," David replied bitterly. "Because I'm black, they treat me like I'm invisible." Elena felt an immediate connection with David. They both knew the pain of being underestimated because of prejudice. "David, are you sure of what you're telling me?" "Absolutely. Jake has a list of wealthy clients who make regular trips. He always knows when they're going out of town." Elena picked up her cell phone and made a call that surprised David. "Hello, Department of Automotive Fraud Investigations? This is Elena Rodriguez, certified mechanical engineer. I need to report a suspected auto parts theft scheme." David's eyes widened. Elena wasn't just a competent mechanic, she had official connections. The conversation lasted a few minutes, with Elena providing precise technical details about the irregularities she had found. "They're sending an investigator here in 2 hours," Elena told David after hanging up. "And I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposition?" "Do you want to continue being treated as invisible, or do you want to help expose a criminal scheme and show everyone here that competence has no color?" David smiled for the first time that day. What do you need me to do? Elena quickly explained her plan. David would use his invisibility to collect evidence, while she kept everyone distracted with the repair of the Lamborghini. There's something you need to know about me, Elena said, looking directly into David's eyes. I'm not just a mechanic who emigrated from Mexico in search of opportunities. What do you mean? Elena smiled, the same mysterious smile that had made Mike uncomfortable just minutes before. I'm a mechanical engineer with a degree from the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico. I specialized in high-performance engines in Germany, and I worked for 2 years as a technical consultant for Lamborghini itself in Italy. David was dumbfounded. Really? Really? What's more, for the last 5 years, I've been secretly working with the FBI investigating luxury car parts theft schemes on the West Coast. The revelation was like a thunderbolt. Elena wasn't a helpless victim being humiliated. She was an international expert using Mike's arrogance and prejudice as cover for a much larger operation. So that bet. David began. It was the perfect opportunity, Elena added. Mike handed me full access to the car, the parts, the records, and he's still going to pay $100,000 for his own humiliation. David laughed, finally understanding the magnitude of what he was witnessing. Now, are you in or out? Elena asked. Totally in, David replied without hesitation. They returned to the workshop, where Mike was still examining the parts with growing concern, completely oblivious to the fact that he had just fallen into the most elaborate trap of his life. Elena looked around Elite Motors, the same place where she had been called a Mexican and treated like dirt. In 2 hours' time, that place would become the stage for an operation that would expose not only Jake and his criminal connections, but an entire network of prejudice, privilege and corruption that she had been tracking for years. It was when everyone laughed desperately at her competence that something extraordinary began to take shape, not just a simple revenge, but a justice operation that would make Mike's arrogance and the systematic discrimination of that workshop crumble like a house of cards, proving that underestimating someone because of their nationality can be the most expensive mistake of a person's life. Exactly 2 hours later, 2 men in dark suits entered Elite Motors showing their IDs. Agents Morrison and Clark, FBI. We're looking for Dr. Elena Rodriguez. The silence that filled the workshop was deafening. Mike looked from Elena to the agents, his expression changing from confusion to growing horror. Dr. Rodriguez. Mike stammered. FBI? What the hell are you talking about? Elena approached the agents with the calmness of someone who had been in control of the situation for a long time. Agents, I've found all the evidence we need. David here, she pointed to the young mechanic, has collected additional documentation that confirms our 2-year investigation. 2 years. Mike exploded, his face turning red. What investigation? You're a Mexican mechanic who came to pick up a part. Agent Morrison opened a folder and began to read. Elena Rodriguez, Ph.D. in Mechanical Engineering from the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico, specialization in high-performance engines from the Technical University of Munich, technical consultant for Lamborghini in Italy, and for 5 years, special consultant for the FBI for crimes related to the black market in auto parts. Every word was like a shot to Mike's pride. Jake, who had gone pale since the agent's arrival, tried to discreetly make his way to the back exit. Jake Santos, Agent Clark called out without even looking back. Don't even think about leaving. We have a warrant for your arrest. Jake froze in place, his legs visibly shaking. Elena turned to Mike, her Mexican accent now combined with an undeniable technical authority. Senor Mike, during these last few months, your workshop has been watched 24 hours a day. We knew that Jake was the inside contact for a network that operates in 6 states. That's impossible, Mike muttered, still trying to process the information. David, Elena called out. The young man approached carrying a tablet and a folder full of documents. Show Mr. Mike what we've collected today. David, who was no longer the invisible silent employee, spoke with a newfound assurance. Mike, over the last 6 months, I photographed all of Jake's suspicious conversations, recorded calls from him coordinating thefts, and documented at least 15 cars that left here with original parts and came back with counterfeit ones. Mike sat down heavily in a chair. My own employee, my own workshop. Your case, Mr. Harrison, Elena continued, was perfect for our operation. Jake knew exactly when you would be traveling to Nevada, coordinated with the criminal workshop there, and ensured that your car was sabotaged at the right time. Agent Morrison added, the garage in Nevada that fixed your car in a few hours? Front for a theft operation. They removed your original parts, installed counterfeit ones, and sold the originals on the black market for $50,000. Jake finally tried to defend himself. I didn't know anything. They threatened me, said they'd hurt my family if I didn't cooperate. Elena laughed bitterly. Jake, we have recordings of you negotiating your percentage of the profits. 40% of each sale. In 2 years, you've pocketed over $300,000. David opened the tablet and showed it to Mike. Here are Jake's bank statements. Regular deposits always a week after rich clients' cars traveled out of town. Mike looked at the figures, his anger growing exponentially. $300,000? You destroyed my reputation, put my clients at risk, made a fool of me, for money. And there's more, Elena said, her voice laden with satisfied righteousness. Jake didn't just steal parts. He sold customers' personal information, addresses, travel times, car details. Essentially, he was an informant for a much larger criminal operation. Agent Clark approached Jake with handcuffs. Jake Santos, you are under arrest for criminal association, receiving, grand larceny, and conspiracy to commit fraud. As Jake was handcuffed, he looked at Elena with pure hatred. You tricked us. You pretended to be an ordinary mechanic when in fact I'm exactly who I always said I was, Elena interrupted him. A mechanic. The difference is that you assumed that Mexican mechanics means incompetent. This prejudice has blinded you to reality. Mike, still trying to absorb the magnitude of the betrayal, looked at Elena with a mixture of admiration and total shame. Elena. Dr. Rodriguez. I need to apologize to you. Not just for today, but for everything. For the way I treated you, for the racist comments, for assuming. Mike, Elena interrupted him gently, your $100,000 bet still stands. I fixed your Lamborghini, exposed the criminal scheme that was destroying your company, and brought the person responsible to justice. Mike looked at the Lamborghini, which Elena was now starting. The sound that came out of the V10 engine was perfect, a pure, powerful Italian roar that brought the whole workshop to silence. How? Mike asked, genuinely impressed. I replaced all the counterfeit parts with originals that I brought in my car, reprogrammed the injection module to the correct factory specifications, and fixed all the damage caused by the incompetent work, Elena explained technically. Your car doesn't just work, it's better than when it left the dealership. Agent Morrison approached Mike. Mr. Harrison, you were a victim, not a criminal. But we need your full cooperation to dismantle the rest of the network. Anything, Mike replied immediately. Anything you need. Elena turned off the Lamborghini and headed for the exit. Mike followed her. Elena, wait. In addition to the $100,000 I owe you, I want to make you an offer. Elena turned around, curious. Be my partner. 50% of Elite Motors. Turn this garage into the best on the West Coast. Teach me to be the kind of businessman you'd respect. Elena smiled, not the mysterious smile of someone keeping secrets, but the smile of someone who had just seen a man recognize his mistakes and genuinely want to change. Mike, I'll consider your proposal. But first, you need to understand something. What? The revenge I carried out today wasn't against you. It was against a system that judges people by nationality rather than competence. You were just the vehicle for a much bigger lesson. As Elena walked towards her own car, a red Ferrari 488 GTB that she had parked discreetly across the street, everyone in the workshop finally understood the magnitude of what they had witnessed. It hadn't just been about fixing a car or exposing a criminal, but about dismantling prejudices that were costly not just morally, but financially, destroying opportunities for excellence through sheer ignorance, proving that underestimating someone because of where they come from can be the most costly mistake in a person's life. 6 months after the day that changed everything, Elena was in her new office at Elite Motors, now renamed Rodriguez and Harrison Automotive Excellence, reviewing the contracts of 3 new Latina employees who would be starting next week. The transformation had been complete. The walls now displayed certificates in English and Spanish, photos of the diverse team undergoing international training, and a gold plaque that read, "Excellence has no nationality, it has competence." Mike knocked on the door, carrying a magazine and with an expression that mixed pride and yet a little constructive shame. "Elena, you need to see this," he said, opening Forbes on the table. The cover showed Elena in her jumpsuit, next to the Lamborghini, with the headline, "The Immigrant Who Revolutionized the Luxury Automotive Market." "They even interviewed my mother in Mexico," Elena laughed, flipping to its page. "Here it is. I always knew my daughter was special, but I never imagined she would prove it to the whole world," says Carmen Rodriguez, the engineer's mother. David entered the room at that moment, now wearing an impeccable blazer. He had become operations manager and was studying for his international certification in high-performance engines. "Elena, I've just received confirmation from Lamborghini. We're officially the center of technical excellence for the entire West Coast," she announced with a beaming smile. "And there's more. They want you to go to Italy next month. 3 weeks in Sant'Agata Bolognese, working directly with the development team." Mike approached, clearly thrilled. "Elena, 6 months ago, I was an average businessman with prejudices I didn't even know I had. Today I run the most respected workshop in the region, with a team that doesn't see color or nationality, it only sees competence." The receptionist, now a young Colombian business graduate, entered discreetly. "Dr. Rodriguez, a family has arrived. A 16-year-old girl really wants to work with cars, but her parents say that it's not for Latin women." Elena, Mike and David looked at each other, all remembering that day that had changed their lives forever. "Where are they?" Elena asked, getting up. "In reception." They went downstairs together. There stood a middle-aged couple, visibly uncomfortable, next to a teenage girl whose eyes sparkled with curiosity as she watched the workshop go by. "Good afternoon," Elena approached, speaking fluent Spanish. "Soy Elena Rodriguez, Socia Técnica de la Empresa. ¿En qué puedo ayudarlos?" The father replied nervously, "Señora, mi hija tiene una idea loca de trabajar con caras. We brought her here to show her that this is not for Latin women." Elena smiled, the same smile that had once held powerful secrets. "What's your name, my dear?" "Sophia," the girl answered shyly. "Sophia, do you like cars?" "I love them. Ever since I was little I've been taking toys apart to see how they work." Elena took Sophia to a Lamborghini that was being prepared for delivery. "Listen to the engine when I turn it on, what about that sound?" Sophia concentrated intently. "It sounds like something is not properly regulated. The sound is not completely uniform." Elena turned off the engine, impressed. "Perfect. There really is a small adjustment we'll make tomorrow. You have a natural ear for mechanics." The parents were stunned. "Sophia," Elena said, pasting a card, "when you finish high school, call me. We'll talk about your future." The father approached, clearly constricted. "Mrs. Rodriguez, may I apologize? I was wrong." "Don't apologize to me," Elena responds gently. "Apologize to your daughter." He turned to Sophia with tears in his eyes. "Daughter, forgive me. If this is what you want, you will have all my support." After the family went inside, Elena observed the movement of the office. Women and men of different nationalities working side by side, learning from each other, celebrating competitions instead of judging origins. Mike approached with an envelope. "Elena, I've just received an offer from the National Association of Entrepreneurs. They want you to speak at the Business Innovation Congress." "What about?" "About how we turned a traditional workshop into a benchmark for excellence through diversity and inclusion. And the figures speak for themselves. Turnover grew by 500%, customer satisfaction reached 99%, turnover was 0, and we became a national benchmark." Just then, news arrived that completed Elena's perfect vindication. Jake had been sentenced to 8 years in prison and was collaborating with the authorities to dismantle the entire criminal network that operated in 6 states. "And Mike," David added, "we discovered that Jake didn't just steal parts, he had a list of wealthy clients organized by nationality. He prioritized sabotaging cars belonging to Latinos, Asians and blacks, because they weren't going to complain about it." Elena shook her head, not surprised. Prejudice and crime go hand in hand. Fortunately, he now has 8 years to think about it. At the end of the day, when the workshop closed, Elena spent a few minutes alone observing the space that had become much more than a workplace. It was a symbol that change is possible when courageous people decide to break down barriers. Her cell phone rang. It was a number from Mexico. Hi, Mija. It was his mother. Hola, mama. I saw you in the magazine today. I hija, estoy tan orgullosa. The whole town is talking about you. You've proved that we Latinas can be anything we want to be. Elena smiled, tears of happiness streaming down her face. Mama, esto apenas el comienzo. As she walked to her red Ferrari, the same one she had parked discreetly on the first day, waiting for the right moment to reveal who she really was, Elena reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her there. 12 months earlier, Mike Harrison was an average successful businessman with deep-seated prejudices that limited his potential. Today, he was a partner in the most respected workshop on the West Coast, with a completely new vision of human potential. Jake was in prison, paying for years of discrimination, crime, and sabotage. David had transformed himself from an invisible employee into a respected manager, proving that opportunity is all some people need to shine. And Elena? Elena had proved that competence knows no borders, that excellence speaks all languages, and that underestimating someone because of their nationality can be the most expensive mistake of a person's life. The best revenge was not to destroy those who had humiliated her, it was to build something so extraordinary that it transformed prejudice into admiration, discrimination into opportunity, and hatred into respect. If this story of transformation and justice has inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that true revenge is achieving success that your enemies could never imagine, because in the end, competence always wins over prejudice.